Aloha and welcome to Live at the Legislature, where each week during the legislative session we give you a chance to hear directly from state senators about what's going on here at the state capitol. Current figures show Hawaii hosting over 10 million visitors a year, which is good news for our tourism-based economy. However, it's been estimated that as much as 20% of that growth over the past few years is attributable to services such as Airbnb and VRBO, which move transient accommodations out of the regular visitor areas and distribute them through private residences around the state. Joining us today to discuss these impacts and what we can do to control and benefit from this growth is Senator Glenn Wakai, who represents the 15th District, which includes Kalihi, Mapunapuna, Salt Lake, Foster Village, Hickam, Pearl Harbor, Aliamanu, and the airport. Aloha, Senator. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Nothing goes better with the Cheerios than policy discussion in the morning.
It's the best way to start your week.
It certainly is. Thanks for having me.
I recall a few years ago economists saying that our tourism economy had topped out and we needed to find new sources of income because we couldn't increase our inventory of hotel rooms. It was too expensive. And I guess they didn't foresee this disruption. How did this happen?
Well, the good news is that people love Hawaii all over the world. The bad news is I don't know if we've been managing the growth as well as we should. So you're seeing that there's some community pushback, and the sentiment of the community is that we really need to think about what the growth trajectory is for the future. And so I think the Hawaii Tourism Authority has certainly got the clear mandate that it's going to be a little bit less foot on the gas and a little bit more on the management side of things, and making sure that as we grow the economy, that the community embraces the tourists that come here and enjoy their stay here in the islands.
And what kind of stresses does this put on the local, not only the economy, but the local culture and how people are living in the various neighborhoods?
Well, we see, unfortunately, that sometimes tourists get into bad situations, go to trails that they're not supposed to, go into waters that they're not supposed to. So I think even on the public safety side, we have to make sure that we keep the tourists in designated tourism areas and not have to call not Air Force One, but Air One to go and save them. Their proliferation outside of the resort communities are having stresses in our communities, whether it's traffic or whether it's loud strangers that are living next door to you. Long gone are the days when everybody grows up in the cul-de-sac and knows everybody in that cul-de-sac. Now we're seeing more and more folks that are just newcomers, and I think it's kind of having a detrimental effect on the fabric of our community. So I think it's high time for the state as well as the city and counties to figure out what are the parameters for the managed growth of Airbnbs or short-term vacation rentals in our community.
Has anybody looked at what kind of impact this has on rental costs for residential? If I want to rent an apartment for $2,000, well, a landowner could make more money renting it out on a nightly basis.
Oh yeah, I mean there was a study by Appleseed which showed that if you were to rent or short-term vacation rent your apartment, you could get 3.5 times more than renting for a local resident. So I mean a lot of this is really fueled by greed, and we don't necessarily think that capitalism is good to a certain extent, but up until the point where it just messes up with the social fabric of a community where local people can't get someplace to live anymore because 20,000 or so units are now in short-term vacation rentals.
Well, so acknowledging that we can't just stop it, we can't just outlaw it, that hasn't worked. And also looking at the benefits, I mean, there's a lot of money coming into the economy. How is the legislature dealing with this, or are they leaving this at the county level?
Well, we're on our 4th year trying to get together on the House and Senate side a good short-term vacation rental bill, but this really is something that the counties should be driving. We're almost putting the cart before the horse. We're trying to figure out how's the state going to fit in to a regime that the county should have really put together. It would be so much easier if the 4 counties have figured out what are the parameters for this, and then the state comes in and just kind of gets the taxes out of this. But absent any kind of clear direction from the counties, we're kind of back and forth on where does the state fit in trying to put some guardrails around this industry.
What about planning and zoning? Do we need to change our approach to that to try to recapture the control over the situation?
Well, if I were on the city council, I would think that this is something that my community really desperately needs. But we're seeing that 4 different counties have 4 very different approaches to figuring out land use and permitting.
And I have noticed in my own neighborhood, I see strangers walking up and down the street now because we have there's Airbnbs on my street, which used to be regular residential. Do we know where these impacts are throughout the community? I mean, are there more in Kalihi or in Manoa? Or
What was most startling, I think the statistics I remember was 1 out of every 18 units in Hawaii now is a short-term vacation rental. On Kauai, it's 1 out of every 7. And in Lahaina, it's 1 out of every 3 units in Lahaina is a short-term vacation rental. That is far too many strangers in our communities.
So basically, it's turned Lahaina completely into a tourist destination,
Right.
and there are no more local people living there. Basically.
Well, there are
Right.
3 out of every, 2 out of every 3 that are local,
Right.
but that is far too many visitors in our communities.
Right. And again, I mean, looking at this as what about the benefits? I mean, are we getting all the benefits we can out of it? Are we collecting all of the TAT and the taxes associated with it?
We're not collecting I shouldn't say, we're collecting a fraction of what we should be collecting from the TAT. But to me, the biggest impact is the social elements of not having local people have a place that's affordable for them to stay in.
Mm-hmm. And have the owners been getting involved, or are they trying to stay in the shadows?
Well, if you're a short-term vacation rental owner, the status quo is good for you, right?
Right.
The more it's wild, wild west, the more I can stuff my house with as many people as I can and extract as much money out of that accommodation as possible, of course. But that's where government is responsible for making sure that we have some level of calmness and order in our communities.
And infrastructure-wise, this has to put some strain on, you know, if you used to have a house that had a family of 3 living in it, and now you constantly have 10 people in the house. Are we planning for infrastructure changes in response to this?
Well, if you're on the city side, I would imagine having short-term vacation rentals increase the property taxes, and maybe they're planning for it, but I don't get the sense that they are. Cities and counties are just scooping the increase in property taxes to go pay for other things. I don't think there's a long-term plan of, ooh, Lanikai, you have so many, we got to increase the sewer capacity. Ooh, we need to widen the roads. I don't hear any of that discussion. It's just collect the property taxes and kind of turn away and pretend that they're not being disruptive in our communities.
Well, it sounds like we're going to have to talk about this a lot more going into the future. I want to thank you for being here and helping the public understand it more. Thank you for joining us. Thanks, Olelo, for this time. And we'll see you next time live at the Legislature.
Do you know your legislators? Visit capital.hawaii.gov and enter your street name to find detailed information about your representatives and senators. From your district number to the committees and current bills your legislators have introduced, this is an easy way to stay up to date with what is happening in your community. If you're looking for detailed information concerning Hawaii State Senate and House hearings, please visit olelo.org/gov-archives. Videos are arranged by date, with the most recent at the top of the list. You can also search the on-demand media library by typing keywords into the search box.
Are you looking for an easy way to get involved in the legislative process? Stop by the Public Access Room located in room 401 at the Hawaii State Capitol. The Public Access Room provides citizens of Hawaii's facilities, services, and equipment to enhance their ability to participate in the legislative process.
Good morning, and welcome to the House's segment of Live at the Legislature, where every week we sit down with members of the House of Representatives to talk about issues, concerns, and legislation moving through the halls of the state capitol. This morning we are going to focus on our state's #1 industry, tourism. Prior to statehood, sugar and pineapple drove Hawaii's economy. In 1959, commercial air travel began here in Hawaii, and there was a birth of an industry, the tourism industry. It was a key factor in driving the economy of the state and expanded its economy from 1959 to 1973. It has had its ups and downs, and despite numerous attempts at diversifying our economy, today tourism is still our #1 industry. Joining us this morning is Representative Richard Onishi. He is the chair of the House Tourism Committee, and he represents District 3 on the Big Island that encompasses Hilo, Curtistown, and Volcano. Thank you for joining us this morning, Representative.
You're welcome, Carolyn.
So let's talk about, tell us, what is the state of the industry right now?
Well, I think the industry over the last 8 or so years has been growing steadily. We have seen increases in the capacity, air seats coming to Hawaii, which has fueled the amount of tourism or tourists that are able to come to Hawaii. Prices, because the oil the cost for oil has been steady. Prices have dropped in terms of the airfare. So more and more people have had the opportunity to travel. And one of the places they love to come to is Hawaii.
Is that, I know that there seems to be, well, there is a new leadership of the Hawaii Tourism Authority, and they have come out recently, and it looks like their focus is going to be more on managing tourism versus marketing tourism. What do you think about that?
Well, the Hawaii Tourism Authority, basically in statute, is responsible for the management and the marketing of tourism in the state of Hawaii. They are an authority that is responsible for ensuring that our tourism industry, the guests that come here, are taken care of, and it continues to provide the economic benefit to the state of Hawaii.
Mm-hmm. So do you agree, though, that, well, let's see, I think, did we hit 10 million visitors yet?
We will hit it this year,
Okay.
almost guaranteed.
Okay. So, but do you think that that's too many?
You know, tourism is very interesting. Last year, we saw the live, real-time example of how the tourism industry can go from being a huge economic driver to a situation where businesses get hurt, the hotels are unoccupied, people are put on unemployment, and that happened on the Big Island with
Right.
the lava flow.
Right.
So tourism on the Big Island was steadily increasing over the past 8 years. They've been doing a great job in trying to market Hawaii Island and the opportunities for visitors to see the island and experience different things. But with the lava flow, all of a sudden, the whole world thought Hawaii was being inundated by lava and lava bombs, and people were afraid to come here.
Right.
And it affected the Big Island the most out of the entire state. Now, that's one example of how quickly tourism can change and its effect on our economy.
So it sounds like it has to be a delicate balance between managing and marketing.
Exactly, it is. And, you know, the Hawaii Tourism Authority has always managed the marketing of Hawaii. A lot of people think that all they do is they do ads and they go out and they promote Hawaii, and, you know, it's like anybody can come here. There are lots of economic factors that limit the number of people that come. There's stiffer competition throughout the world in terms of trying to get the leisure and business travelers to go to their destinations. So the importance of the Hawaii Tourism Authority is to monitor the world situation, the effects it's having on Hawaii, and then to position themselves correctly so that we are attracting people that come to Hawaii, that respect Hawaii, our environment, and our culture.
Well, it seems, based on the number of people coming here, that they have certainly been doing their job recently.
Well, you know, and I said earlier, right, there's a number of factors. Lower cost for airfare, more opportunities on seats, the addition of different types of attractions that have opened up, things to do. Social media has played a huge role in promoting Hawaii to the rest of the world. So all of these factors together, along with the marketing, increases the number of tourists that come to Hawaii.
One of the things we often hear about, though, is visitors are up, spending is down.
We hear that all the time.
Right.
Right?
What does that mean exactly?
Well, consider social media, for example. On social media, what is being promoted? Destination, bargains, first-time experiences.
Right.
You know, social media promotes, well, I went to Rainbow Drive-In, was great meal for $10, right? Versus, hey, I went to, this Wolfgang Steakhouse and paid $50 or whatever it is
Right.
for great steak, So people out there are looking for value when they travel. We do it.
Right.
We
Yeah,
search
absolutely.
around for hotel rooms, for accommodations, for places to eat, to get a different experience than the normal experiences that you would have as on a tour, in a tour group.
Right. Now, we just have about a minute and 1 second left, and the Senate talked a lot about vacation rentals. I would like to briefly, because part of that not cheap, but personal tour is Airbnb, and that is a problem for us.
Well, it is a problem in the sense that the counties have not managed it over the course of many years. We've gone through phases in accommodations in Hawaii, right? We first had hotels,
Right.
then we had timeshares, and the hotels fought against timeshares. And after timeshares, we had bed and breakfasts, and the hotels and timeshares fought against bed and breakfasts.
Okay.
And now we have short-term accommodations. So the accommodations world has evolved. What we need to do is manage it better. And the counties are the people that are supposed to be managing.
Well, as chair of the House Tourism Committee, we will be watching you. Watch them. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you,
and
Carmen.
thank you for joining us at Live at the Legislature. We'll see you next week. Aloha.
Do you know your legislators? Visit capital.hawaii.gov and enter your street name to find detailed information about your representatives and senators. From your district number to the committees and current bills your legislators have introduced, this is an easy way to stay up to date with what is happening in your community. If you're looking for detailed information concerning Hawaii State Senate and House hearings, please visit olelo.org/gov-archives. Videos are arranged by date, with the most recent at the top of the list. You can also search the on-demand media library by typing keywords into the search box.
Are you looking for an easy way to get involved in the legislative process? Stop by the public access room located in room 401 at the Hawaii State Capitol. The public access room provides citizens of Hawaii's facilities, services, and equipment to enhance their ability to participate in the legislative process.
Good morning and welcome to the Legislative Minority segment of Live at the Legislature. Joining us today to talk about a host of issues is Representative Gene Ward, the Minority Leader representing District 17, which spans from Hawaii Kai all the way to Kalama Valley. Rep. Ward, good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us. Before we get into all the issues we want to talk about today, just give me your first thoughts on what the Senate and House majority had said, about tourism and all the issues that they had spoken about.
Well, I liked it because it was thematic. It says, okay, what's going on with tourism? But it also led me to think of how we've really failed to restructure or diversify our economy. We got all our eggs in one basket, or let's say two baskets. As it was indicated, we had ag and then tourism. Now we got ag and military spending. Anybody who looks at a family budget or has any family investment, you just don't put everything into stocks, or you don't put into savings or into bonds or in real estate or in gold or silver or things like. You diversify it, and my biggest disappointment of where we are now on what, are we day 32?
33 today.
33? We're halfway through the legislature. We really haven't addressed these economic issues. Okay, we talked about tourism, but the economic issues that I'm concerned about is that we don't have a mindset, or we have a myopia, kind of nearsightedness about economic opportunities. Case in point, we got a bill going through to cut the tax credit for filmmaking here. We have the potential to be the Hollywood of the Pacific, and we're damning the tax credits that for which, for every dollar we pay for a tax credit, we get $4 of income. Now, duh, that's an economic generator. We also have a potential to have a moon base on the Big Island to train all the astronauts in the world. We can't even get a bloody reso through to give the legislative backing behind such an idea like that. And I know we tried to get the Trump Kim Jong-un thing here as part of the theme of being the Geneva of the Pacific. I think there's so many opportunities we miss to diversify as well as restructure our economy. And now we either got people in the military or we got people in the tourism side. We're kind of haves and have-nots, so to speak. One requires a lot of education, the other one less so. And then we've got a small business community that's basically trying to strive and stay alive. So my point is, we can do more economic development. And I'm not even talking about what Trump did in terms of tax cuts and regulation cuts. We haven't even touched on that. I'm just talking about opportunities that are just low-lying fruit, low-hanging fruit that we can do. And I hope future legislators will get a little bit more economic diversification into there. So anyways, that's first disappointment of the session.
I want to touch really quickly on the lunar moon base
Yes.
reso that you've been sort of championing the past couple of years. We hear the governor talk about, innovating our economy and our education sector, but one of the things is, we obviously don't have that geographic strategic advantage of, maybe a Silicon Valley or a Seattle. So given our isolation and given just the resources that we have now, how does the moon base fit into the future of Hawaii's economy?
Any state that does well uses its strategic advantages to the ultimate. Our strategic advantage for the moon base is that we have a mountain that looks like a moon. We have the actual craters and the simulation of the regolith, the whole lava. You can't be closer to the moon than when you drive from the Keauhou airport into Kona. It's just amazing. And what we've got is we have a gem in Hank Rogers, the Tetris founder or marketing owner of that. He's what DBED has running Pisces, and he is so much behind the moon base. What he needs is some oomph from the legislature. As he goes throughout the world recruiting people, he wants to train every astronaut in the world on the Big Island. And we have the potential, because there's no better training place in the world. You can simulate not only the environment on the outside, but you can bring in the simulation on the inside. He also wants to have a visitor industry where you can walk as a tourist into possible a simulated environment. So those kind of opportunities are there. We're just now, again, as I said earlier, the Hollywood of the Pacific, we're just getting a kind of a momentum in the areas of filmmaking. But when we cut the tax credit, we're not being competitive. So being competitive for the Big Island, we got the best environment in the world in our location and in our mountain, but it's where we just haven't moved ahead on that.
And now we'll transition back. We'll sort of recap of what you and the minority were looking at during crossover last week, 2 weeks ago, I believe. What were some of the surprises about crossover, some of the things that stuck out to you, and some of the things now that the House is hearing Senate bills that you're looking at?
Well, I think one of the disappointments for those of us who are not, or for a drug, or who are for a drug-free Hawaii, is that the decriminalization pretty much sailed through. As former Representative Marcus Oshiro said, you do the medical marijuana dispensaries, and then you're 2 to 3 to 4 years away from decrim, and then recreational marijuana. I think that's bad for our youth. It shows scientifically that the brains, if young people get into it, which they do already, is going to be a detriment. We're going to have a group of wusses that are going to be growing up and smoking weed and lackluster for what otherwise now is a very competitive economic international situation. Militarily, we are needing to be more alert. And I think just kicking back and, I mentioned on the floor that anybody in this House of Representatives has probably tried, except for a few, to have smoked marijuana. And interestingly, Kaeo, I was told by the majority leader that those remarks that I made should be struck from the journal, from the record. Now, why admitting that most people, when I was in the Peace Corps, everybody was trying something. Those kind of things, using censorship, at the same time trying to promote marijuana, at the same time not allowing somebody on the floor of the House to talk about marijuana, I thought was great irony.
We've got about a minute and a half left. Transitioning to maybe one of the bigger issues that will affect the taxpayers here is SB 1474.
The GET tax increase?
GET for schools.
Well,
What are your thoughts
fortunately,
on
it's
that?
been blanked out. I don't think there's probably a stomach for a GE tax increase as long as the rail tax is going and the rail subpoenas are being investigated. It shows that probably not much favor to do that. At the same time, I'm really disappointed that the rail audit has been canceled, even though that was at the advice of our great Les Condo, who knows that we've got to get to the bottom of it, but we canceled it, and I introduced a amendment on the floor to just postpone it. But the realities are the cost of living in Hawaii is the highest. The GED tax is the most regressive. It ain't gonna happen.
We've got about 20 seconds left. Any final thoughts?
Yes, I think the budget for the Hawaiian Homes needs to be reinstated as to what the governor had put it in it. It's like another potential thing. We got 203,000 acres, 100 years, and we only have 9,700 homesteads. We have to up our game, and we got to get the Prince Kohio vision funded and the promises fulfilled for the Hawaiian community.
Representative Ward, as always, thank you for your time. Thank you to
Pleasure.
the viewers. We will see you next week.